introduce myself. I didn't meet you all last week. My name's Keely. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. So, what do you think of what's taking place in Egypt right now?
I definitely feel that people should be allowed to elect their leadership. If people are to be led by government, then people should be a part of electing that government and placing that government in power. Government's power only is allowed and only is legitimate as much as it listens to the people and as much as it's able to change with the people. I think that as a U.S. citizen, certainly the United States has had a horrible and long history of supporting dictatorships and supporting military coups throughout the world. And I would continue to put pressure on my government to say that enough is enough and that we're no longer going to support that, that we're no longer going to make it easier or okay or justifiable for governments to suppress the voice of their people and to not be held accountable to it, or to continue to receive aid and continue to receive assistance from the United States government.
Okay, so what do you think about the military bloody coup, killing more than killing more than 3,000 people in one day?
As any military coup, genocide, massacre, it is completely deplorable. It should not be allowed to stand. It should not be allowed to happen without repercussions, without those individuals who took place in those murders being held accountable for their murder, because that's what it is. It's outright murder. And they should be held accountable. Those individuals who took place in the killing should be held accountable.
What do you think the international society should do to General Sisi of what he's doing right now? And until this moment, he's not even being held accountable for anything yet.
The international community definitely has to come together and put pressure to hold those individuals accountable. The more that we continue to be silent, the more that this is going to continue to happen. And it's happened, as I said, throughout hundreds of years now this has happened, and it's happened in continuity because people are just silent on the issue and they allow it to continue to happen. Only when the people collectively come together and say this is not just and this is not the way we want our society to be, that's the only time when things will change. And so I think that the international community definitely has to come together and say this is not going to be allowed to happen without consequences.
Have you been watching the Constitution and the referendum that the government is trying to deceive the whole world and tell them that millions of people went there, and actually the boycott was more successful than any other thing. Mm-hmm. So what do you think the game they're trying to play to tell the people to impose legitimacy on the whole world, on the Egyptians especially? What do you think?
I think that without going into a lot of detail, because I don't know a whole lot about the Constitution itself being written or being changed. Certainly I have kept up with a little bit of it, but and that's a fault of my own that I haven't made myself more informed, obviously. But for the people to be able to write their own Constitution, that is what has to be held true. People have to have the voice, and like I said, if they're going to elect government, if they're going to elect individuals to be the head of their government, if they're going to create a constitution, then it's the people's voice that needs to be heard. So if now people are going back and making changes to that constitution that are not being approved by the overall populace, then those are completely outside of what's just or what is a part of human rights.
The Muslim Brotherhood, the one they accused them of being terror, they were elected 5 times under President Morsi, or even before President Morsi. and now they're calling them terrorists. Just to add to that part.
I think that
I don't think.
terrorism is certainly a malleable term. I think that governments, throughout the history of governments, have used the word terrorism to support whatever it is that they need to make happen. So opposition becomes terrorist. Opposition becomes the violent actors, not the government that is in charge that is in fact acting violently, that is in fact creating terrorism amongst its people because it's not listening to its people, it's not reacting to its people. So, terrorism, I think, really holds very little weight when it's being used by particularly an unjust government. And
so, would you think there's any light at the end of the tunnel? Like an American seeing everything from far away. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel, or are they gonna keep killing people and killing? I mean, people still protest. They're not fearing the death anymore. They're saying we either live free or die with dignity. So what do you think at the end of the tunnel? Do you see the light, or you're not seeing the light?
I definitely see the light. I think that people are voicing their hope. They are voicing their indignation. They are voicing their demand that justice be seen and that their voices be valued and that their voices be heard. So I think as long as people continue to push for that and continue to stand up for it, that it will change. And again, I feel that the international community, myself completely included, we have to be better about looking outside of our own world, looking outside of what immediately affects me at this moment in my life in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and see what is in fact happening to my brothers and sisters throughout the world. Because if you're oppressed, then I'm oppressed. Until we can stand together and fight for one another, then overall in the world we won't see the change that we need. But I definitely see that throughout the world you see these people's movements standing up and demanding justice and demanding their human rights and their human dignity. And so I think if we continue to fight, then it's gonna get better. It has to, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I agree with you.
But I think the most important thing is, what do you all think?
We agree
you
with
see
you.
hope?
We didn't. We just agree with you 100%. We know that we're gonna win at the end because all of the persistence and the only thing, don't give up. Do not give up, and so we agree with you.